Poate că și eu am partea mea de vină.
Igen, ne csinálj most ilyen fölösleges dolgokat, amit...
Unde ești tu?
Nem mentek jó, igen. Hát én egy kicsit engedett, de azért még szédülök. Fekszek fel, skeletben, még szédülök.
Cu bine.
And now, we present a geographical program from Geography Now host, Paul Arvano for Arms. Episode is Germany. Enjoy it on SkyXD Romania Serbia, Australia, Netherlands 2.
Nem.
Ai o construcție în plan? Poartă întotdeauna echipament.
Video. This program is brought to you by
Right. Lederhosen Schnitzel beer, bratwurst order bread and beer, complicated history beer, no humor, EDM, and gummy bears that will kind of like give you diarrhea, but it's like worth it. Ugh, those are such horrible stereotypes that every German is so sick and tired of hearing. Gummy bear?
It's time to learn geography.
Hey everyone, I'm your host Barbie. So we've conquered Belgium's castle, jumped through Denmark's lagoon, danced through France's forest, and now we've made it to the final boss of the EU, Kingpin Germany. Level 1, begin. Ah, you know why I'm smiling. Yep, Germany has a lot of territorial anomalies. We'll get into that in a little bit, but first, Germany is located in central Western Europe, bordered by 9 other countries. Don't forget little Luxembourg, with small coasts on the North and Baltic Seas, which they own about 50 small islands. Now, Germany, like the US, is a federal republic which has 16 smaller states, or Bundesländer, each with its own constitution, 3 of which are cities, the capital Berlin, Hamburg, and Bremen, which is actually kind of like 2 cities, including Bremerhaven on the coast, but they kind of act like one entity. Fun side note, Lower Saxony is actually geographically situated further north than regular Saxony. Now let's jump into the fun stuff. Now we already discussed the Jungholz Quadrupoint and the Vennbahn Railway enclaves with Belgium and Austria. However, there's a few more. The entire town of Bussingen am Hochrhein is surrounded by Switzerland, whereas part of the Konstanz is cut off by the Rhine River and surrounded by Switzerland. However, immediately across the river, a small patch of empty land on the German side actually belongs to Switzerland. Finally, they split the island of Usedom with Poland in the north. Germany is interesting because every state in the country has its own distinct culture, dialect, history, food, traditions. I mean, Bavarians will be quite drastically different from Schleswig-Holsteiners. Mecklenburg-Vorpommern will be different from Saarland. This all has to do with ancient and recent history. Basically, in the quickest way I can summarize this, Germanic tribes, Roman wars, Charlemagne, 3 kingdoms, this guy marries an Italian, creating a whole new mess called the Holy Roman Empire made up of 300 smaller separate kingdoms, states, and dukedoms, which had nothing to do with Romans. Teutonic Knights, Brandenburgs became Prussia, Habsburgs became Austrians, Lithuanians and Poles made their own thing, whereas the Hungarians joined the Austrians. Wars, battles, Napoleon comes over and messes everything up, and finally, German nationalism surges, and in 1871, Otto von Bismarck creates the first proto-German unified state. And then they're all like, oh dang, we came late to this game. We gotta scramble for some colonies. And that's how all of these countries at one point spoke German. Oh, and also keep in mind, like 300 years before this, a German banking company obtained colonial rights to Venezuela for like 20 years. They were looking for the lost city of El Dorado. So technically, you can kind of say Germans colonized the Americas, but it wasn't like a nationalized conquest thing. Fast forward even more, and then you get World War I, the monarchy ends, Treaty of Versailles, they lose land, Nazis come in, World War II, Germany splits in 2 for about 40 years, and then finally, we get the Germany we have today. East Germany, consisting of these states, is today still quite different from the rest of Germany as it was first occupied and influenced by the Soviet Union. They are generally not as well off economically as the rest of the country, as you can still see the blocky Soviet-style buildings sprawled throughout the regions. In fact, the city of Berlin was split in half, and the west side was actually an enclave of West Germany, only accessible by train and highway. You can even see from a satellite image the divide. East Berlin still uses the yellowish tinted sulfur vapor light bulbs, whereas the west still uses fluorescent and mercury arc white tinted light bulbs. And the funny thing is, although Berlin is the largest city in Germany, the busiest airports are actually Frankfurt, Munich, Dusseldorf, with Berlin Tegel ranking at number 4. Otherwise, some top notable landmarks and spots would be the Brandenburg Gate, the Valhalla, Cologne Cathedral, the Ulminster Church, the tallest in the world, the Berlin Victory Column, and hundreds of castles all over, the most notable one probably being Neustadt Neuschwanstein, the concept behind Disney's Cinderella Castle. Germany also has over 400 zoos, more than any other country in the world. And of course, everybody knows about the Autobahn, the highway system in which if you see this sign, it means there's no speed limit. And it's like that for a huge portion of the roadway. And no wonder, considering how vast and wide those cultivated countrysides can get. Time for level 2. Okay, think of it this way. In Germany, the more down you go, the more up you move. Basically, Germany lies on the Atlantic shelf in the north that starts with the mudflats in the North Sea. Seriously, this island right here is accessible only for a few hours by foot until the tide comes and floods everything. Then everything just kind of creeps up into the Alps in the south by Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg, with the highest mountain, Zugspitze, located right along the border with Austria. Kind of like France, Germany is filled with a vast irrigating network of rivers like the Spree, Elbe, Weser, Rhine, and of course, the mighty Danube that starts here. About a third of the land is arable and another third is woodland, and after millennia of civilization, Germans have cultivated the crap out of their country. Most agriculture, of course, happens in the North Flat Plains and the central regions of the country, which is, by the way, kind of like Europe's tornado alley. Due to its position sandwiched between the Arctic blasts of Scandinavia and the moist, warm jet streams of the Mediterranean below, Germany can be an atmospheric war zone in the summer. There are more tornadoes on average in Germany than any other country in Europe. Speaking of flat farmland, Germany is the world's largest rye and hop producer. Germans abso-freaking-lutely love their bread. There are over 300 different kinds of bread in the country, more types than any other country in the world, and almost every meal incorporates some kind of slice or small bun or Brötchen of bread. Hast du gluten-free? Nein! Germans are heavy meat eaters, specifically in pork. They basically know every possible way to cook a pig. Over 50 different types of sausage exist alongside schnitzels, rouladen, sauerbraten, Schweinsachse, and at a big party you might find Spanferkel. Beer reigns supreme all over as the third largest consumers of beer after the Czech Republic, even their president has no problem with public intoxication, and Austria. Germany is world renowned for their beer, which by the way follows the Reinheitsgebot rule in which they are only allowed to use water, hops, malt, and sometimes yeast. Nonetheless, about 1,300 breweries exist, pumping out over 5,000 brands. The oldest continuously existing brewery in the world, started by Benedictine monks in 1040 AD, can be found here. Germany takes the environment very seriously and for the past 2 decades has been going on a major green revolution. As of today, they have the largest installed solar power capacity, and green infrastructure practices like home installed turbines and solar panels have seen a huge surge in the past 10 years. Forests dominate the southern regions where the landscape gets hillier and mountainous, the most famous one being the Black Forest or the Schwarzwald in Baden-Württemberg. Deer, bears, boar, foxes, badgers, and the national animal, the eagle, can be found thriving in these parts. Nonetheless, economically, Germany is known mostly for their exceptional engineering and industry production. Companies we've all heard of like Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Audi, Telecom, Nivea, DHL, Bosch, Adidas, Puma! Adidas, Puma! Yeah, it's kind of like the whole Biscoito Bolacha thing from Brazil. Remember? Well, we have mudflats, tornadoes, pork, beer, mountains. All that's missing is people. Level 3. Fun little side note, in Germany, this is 3, not this. Now, if the EU was a family, Germany would kind of be like the dad who got out of rehab, reconciled with his wife and kids, and is taking his new life very seriously as he is haunted by the demons of his past every day. First of all, the country has about 82 million people and is the most populated in the EU, second most in Europe after Russia, and has the 4th largest nominal GDP in the world. About 80% of the country identifies as ethnically German, 12% other Europeans, mostly Polish, Italian, Dutch, and so on. Turks make up about 3.5%, Asians at 2%, and the rest are made up of other groups like Africans and Americans. Also, they use the euro, they use the C and F type outlets, and they drive on the right side of the road. Germany is without a doubt a global powerhouse. It is the strongest economy in the EU and makes up about 16% of the union's population. It's the 3rd largest exporter and importer of goods in the world. After the United States, Germany is also the 2nd most popular global migration destination. Germany experiences a high standard of living, tuition-free universities, if you get accepted that is, a mostly government-subsidized universal healthcare system, about a quarter is still privatized, and state pension for retirement at age 65. Now, when it comes to language, things get a little tricky. Each state kind of has their own type of German. However, to get by, most Germans learn how to speak Hochdeutsch, or High German, which is the standard dialect. The European Charter, however, protects the minority languages of Frisian, Danish, Romani, Sorbian, which is like a Slavic-based language used along the Czech-Polish border, and Plattdeutsch, or Low German, which has similarities to Dutch and is typically used by the Amish and Mennonite communities across the world. In terms of regional distinctions, though, Germany is kind of divided into 5 cultural areas: Rhineland, East and Middle Deutschland, Norddeutschland, Baden-Württemberg, and Bavaria. Rhineland is on the west side and has a culture somewhat more influenced by France, more Catholic, Olympics, Carnival celebrations are huge out here. East and Middle Germany was the part that used to be its own country for 40 years as it was influenced by the Soviets. Sorbians can also be found here too. Northern Germany has a coastal sea culture that identifies closer with Denmark and the Netherlands. They're also known for being kind of quiet and reserved. Baden-Württemberg has an interesting Swabian culture where they speak a dialect so thick that only about 40% Germany came from, with lederhosen, dirndls, half-timber, beer houses, and cuckoo clocks. For the record, Germans are sick of those stereotypes. It's like saying all Americans are cowboys with guns and horses. Speaking of stereotypes, some of the stereotypes in Germany include things like Saxons being very indecisive, Berliners are always bragging about themselves, Swabians are stingy, Bavarians drink too much, Hessians talk too much, Holsteiners don't talk enough, and so on. Words differ from regions too. For example, in High German, you would say Auf Wiedersehen, but in Bavarian, you would say Fertig Gott. In Kölsch, you would say Tschüss, and in Rhineland, you might say Adios. And there's so many compound words that get really long and complicated, like Rindfleische Ticketerungs, Überwachungsaufgaben, Übertragungsgesetz. This is because many words are merkwürdig, or ambiguous words, that are kind of elongated to give off an extensive meaning. Germans have very vivid imaginations and make up words for everything. Like my favorite word, Backpfeifengesicht. Not this time. By the way, for the record, this letter makes a double S sound. However, spelling reformers have tried to decrease the usage of this letter in recent years, which has led to some protests. Germans also love dubbing everything from foreign media into German. Some like this, some don't, but either way, it's here to stay. About 60% of the country identifies, at least nominally, as Christians, split between Protestants and Catholics. Germany was even the birthplace of the Protestant Reformation, split from the Catholic Church by Martin Luther. Otherwise, the rest are mostly agnostic or irreligious, with a noticeable community of Muslims, mostly from the huge Turkish and Middle Eastern communities at about 5%, as well as a few Jews, Buddhists, and Hindus rounding up the remainder 1%. To kind of get a feel of what it's like to be German, you kind of have to understand where they've come from. After World War II, they kind of had a lot of work to do. However, it wasn't until the mid-50s and early 60s that the Wirtschaftswunder, or economic wonder, happened, to which almost everybody got to work. Basically, this guy envisioned and implemented a social market economy combined with free market capitalism alongside socialist policies that established fair competition in a welfare state. GDP increased by 80%, investments by 120%, labor forces were utilized to the maximum. Things started to get better. In Germany, all children are corralled into general public schools until age 10, when they are given the option to enroll in 3 different types of middle schools. Gymnasium, geared towards focusing on higher linguistic, mathematic, and science fields for universities. Realschule, a middle ground type of school. And Hauptschule, a school that is geared towards helping kids that seem to show promise in specific vocation or trades. Germany also has the largest music market in the EU and the third in the world after the US and Japan. They love preserving their heritage and culture through music and art. In fact, there are around 130 national orchestras, mostly supported by public money, and artists get a 50% reduction in health insurance through a special type of offer in the legal system. One thing that still kind of supposedly maintains itself in Germany is the mindset of Vergangenheitsverwaltung. Totally butchered that, which kind of translates to a lingering sense of guilt from the past. Germans have reportedly some of the lowest levels of national pride, and unless if you're at a soccer game, chances are you will almost never see anyone holding a German flag or waving it in any kind of like patriotic setting. It's weird, but it's kind of how things are.
You monster!
They've made great strides to move on from the past. Nazi flags and Mein Kampf are incredibly illegal items to own in Germany, and they even have a rule, the Volksverhetzung, which basically says you cannot talk trash by denying the past atrocities. Some people say this infringes on free speech, others say it's good because it solidifies truth. Otherwise, some notable Germans throughout history include Charlemagne, although he was a Frank, but I guess it kind of counts. Albrecht Dürer, David Friedrich, Gutenberg, Bach, Beethoven, Karl Benz, Albert Einstein, although Americans would like to claim that he moved to the US and became American, Johannes Kepler, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, Friedrich Schiller, Michael Shoemaker, Alex von Humboldt, and of course Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels co-founded Marxism. One thing Germans do best would have to be diplomacy. To this day, the German passport holds the most visa-free nations out of any other country in the world, just beating Sweden. Therefore, you can kind of conclude that Germany kind of knows how to relate to people. Let's find out how in the final round, level 4. Germany knows how to make friends. They have over 220 diplomatic missions abroad and over 350 honorary consuls, and have an incredibly high position of authority in the EU. Their closest African friend would probably be Namibia. As a former German colony way back in the 19th century, Namibia held on relations, and to this day, German is still a recognized language in Namibia. Germans have been supporting and sharing ties both economically and ideologically for over a century. India and South Korea are really close friends in Asia. India supported both East and West Germany during the Cold War, and after reunification, they were like, woohoo! Woo! Even better! And Germany is to South Korea what Japan is to France. They love to piggyback off of each other's ideas and cultures, especially in the automotive industry. Many South Koreans were sent to Germany after the Korean War to work abroad and study, and Germans have been growing in fascination with visiting South Korea. The US is probably the closest ally outside of the EU. About 30% of Americans claim German heritage, and after World War II, the Marshall Plan allowed the US to give post-war aid to Germany, which helped kickstart the economic recovery. Germany was a key figure in the formation of the State of Israel after World War II, which after the Holocaust left an obligation to invest in the building up of a Jewish community. Turkey is probably the closest Middle Eastern ally, as the Turks make up the largest Asian demographic in Germany, although many of them may or may not also identify as Kurds. But since Kurds don't have a state of their own, they usually go under Turkish passports when immigrating and are documented as such. Their best friends, however, would probably be literally all their neighbors. The thing is, Germany is kind of like Bosnia and Herzegovina, in which by default they kind of get friends based off of the regional alliances. Bavarians get along with Austrians, Baden-Württembergs get along with Switzerland, East Germany has good relations with the Slavic countries, the Rhine states love Belgium, Luxembourg, and France, and the north side loves the Netherlands and Denmark. France, though, is kind of like the trophy wife of Germany, as the two have had an angry start but then eventually fell in love and worked together beautifully. France is like the beautiful, flashy spokesperson for the EU that stands in the spotlight as Germany stands in the background, managing all the money and logistical work. In conclusion, although Germanic peoples have existed for thousands of years, an actual unified German state didn't appear until kind of recently, and the brief time that they've been around, they've kind of gone through some of the most intense, world-revolutionizing historical events possibly imagined. Yet, they've come out working hard and building their way up to become a world superpower. You gotta give it to them. There's something about the Germans. And with that, final boss level complete. Stay tuned. Another African state Germany has ties to, Ghana, is coming up next.
Am zis să vin la voi, voi cunoașteți mai bine. Foarte bine, da, care și vezi? Agentul de securitate care a murit în seara aia are un copil. Ce este ceva în ziua asta, nu? Și el era văduv. După ce a murit, copilul a ajuns la orfelinat.
Part 2, which is federal state Simon Bundesländer, is next.
Hey everybody, so as you know, we are working on the scripts for the next few country episodes, which means this is going to have to be a filler week. Heavily requested. This one is going to be on the states, or Bundesländer, of Germany. Germany is a powerhouse nation. Obviously, it is the largest economy in Europe, and it holds a significant role of geopolitical activity that links an entire continent. As you'll soon find out, each state in Germany is pretty unique and diverse in their own way. They each kind of have their own specialty, and some have unique dialects. Before we get into this, though, I just want to let you know that one of my favorite sponsors is working with us once again, Cetera. For those of you that don't know, Cetera is a geography game website. Yeah, pretty appropriate for this channel, don't you think? You can download it on iOS or Android, or you can just go to the website here and play it online. You can choose your own region. You can test yourself on things like physical landscapes, capitals. You can even custom create your own game. And get this, they actually made a Geography Now game that you can play. It covers the countries we've done so far on this channel. Yeah, they made one. And not only that, but speaking of Germany, it comes in over 30 different languages, including German. I totally recommend you check them out. I've played this game. It's great. It's worth it. Thank you, Cetera, for sponsoring Geography Now. All right, and so with that being said, let's just jump into the 16 Bundesländer of Germany. First one, Baden-Württemberg, capital Stuttgart. This is like the other southern state besides Bavaria. It was formed by the joining of 3 other former states. These, kind of like the luxury car state, you know, they have the headquarters of Mercedes-Benz and Porsche. Lots of manufacturing going down here. It's very busy. They're also known for having the Black Forest, where all those fairy tales were inspired off of by the Brothers Grimm, which also plays into the unique Swabian culture that they're known for down here. Swabians have possibly the weirdest dialect in all of Germany. A lot of Germans can't even understand them, and it incorporates a lot of weird, unique festivals. A lot of times they wear these costumes based off of the fairy tales that came from from here. Switzerland is like their best friend. They really just kind of get each other. A lot of Swiss people come over and travel to this area of Germany, and they're known for being really smart with their money and handling it very well, which also kind of means a lot of people think they're kind of stingy. That's like the stereotype. Geography Jessica says it is a sacrilege to throw stuff out, even if it's a broken TV or something. Bavaria, or Bayern, capital Munich. This is the largest state in size and the second largest in terms of population. It's kind of like the home of all those, perpetuated German stereotypes that became famous through American culture. Lederhosen, dirndls, those big 1-liter jugs of beer, half timber houses, stuff like that. Reason being because after World War II, this place was occupied by the Americans, and whatever they saw, they just kind of put in media. They're kind of like the most independent out of all the German states. I mean, they even had their own king at one point. He went crazy and drowned himself. Frisians in the Netherlands. It's kind of like the country farmland area of Germany. They host a lot of fairs like the World Fair Expo in 2000. However, interestingly enough, you can also hear quite a in various ways. They love apple cider. There's even a fountain that shoots apple wine at you. But yeah, Hessen is kind of like it's like the financial management brother of the family. Lower Saxony, capital Hanover. It's the second largest state in terms of area, and it's called Lower Saxony because of the elevation, not because of the geographic location on the map. Keep that in mind. This state gets along very well with the Netherlands. This state kind of has like two cultures, the Plain Saxons and the Frisians, whom are related to the Frisians in the Netherlands. It's kind of like the country farmland area of Germany. They host a lot of fairs like the World Fair Expo in 2000. However, interestingly enough, you can also hear quite a bit of Plattdeutsch spoken here as well, which is the dialect that the Amish speak in the Americas. It's also the headquarters of Volkswagen, and they also have Wolfsburg, which is the city with the highest GDP per capita in the entire country. It's like the richest city. Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, capital Schwerin. This is actually the poorest state in Germany, and it is the second former East Germany state. As the name implies, Vorpommern, it was part of the former area known as Pomerania, which, yes, that's where the Pomeranian dog comes from. Some people joke that it should be called Mecklenburg-Vorpommern because it has a lot of Polish influence. It's right next to Poland. They even share and split this island with them called Usedom. It is very rural and sparsely populated. It has a lot of farmers and old people. In fact, it is disputably the oldest state in all of Germany. Tons of lakes here, though. The largest lake completely within Germany is actually found here as well. They also have the largest island in all of Germany. Beautiful beaches, cool places with like chalk cliffs. But yeah, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. It's kind of like the old angry grandpa that yells at the kids for running on his lawn. North Rhineland-Westphalia, capital Düsseldorf. This is like the big daddy of Germany. It's the most populated with about 17 million. It's the powerhouse industrial capital of Germany. Much of its economy was built off of coal mining in the beginning, and today they have more companies and factories than anywhere else in Germany. People here have a deep-rooted Catholic culture. They love celebrating Carnival. The two biggest cities, Düsseldorf and Cologne, are always like competing with each other. There's really cool Frank Gehry architecture in Düsseldorf. Cologne has the Cologne Cathedral, obviously, and Cologne is kind of like the media capital of Germany. Much of the major studios can be found here. But yeah, overall, this state is kind of like the partying dad of Germany. Rhineland-Palatinate, capital Mainz. This is kind of like the younger brother of Rhineland-Westphalia, except they love wine. Like, it's often argued that the best German wine can be found in this state. There's a lot of historical sites and castles, especially ones that date back to the days when France was always like invading and taking over. They also have the last bastion of Roman presence north of the Alps in the town of Trier. It's also the birthplace of Karl Marx. They are known for liverwurst. It's kind of like the loyal sidekick of Rhineland-Westphalia. Saarland, capital Saarbrücken. Besides the city-states, it is the smallest state in area. Basically, the people here are like Frenchy Germans. The area was occupied by France after World War II, and they were actually their own independent state all the way up until 1957 when they decided to go back to Germany, which explains why the people here are really good at speaking French. Geography Fiona says they are like the long-lost uncle that you don't know how you're related to and speaks French. The most notable site, though, probably being the Völklingen Ironworks. It's a massive rusting steel plant that is now a UNESCO heritage site. Today, it holds a museum, science center, and an auditorium for concerts. I wouldn't be surprised if heavy metal concerts were a big thing here. I'm just saying. Saxony, capital Dresden. This is the third former East East European state. Geography Thorsten explains it pretty well when he says, the Saxons are one of the oldest German tribes, with having a lot of political influence in the early times of the Holy Roman Empire, and with some of them even creating something of what we now know today as England, hence why many British people say that they're Anglo-Saxon, and why the English language is classified as a Germanic language. It kind of started here. Interesting, right? This place is kind of known for having two things: great universities and very right-wing politics. They get along really well with Czechia / the Czech Republic, whatever you like calling it. They have a minority group called the Sorbians, a Slavic people group, kind of related to the Czechs, and it's actually a language that is protected by the German government. Nonetheless, though, I've been told that the people here are really super nice. They have like that East German hospitality. It's just, you know, they're different from the rest of Germany, especially Lower Saxony. Like the two Saxonies have nothing to do with each other. Saxony-Anhalt, capital Magdeburg. This is the fourth former East German state. It's often said that they call themselves the state that wakes up earlier. This is basically kind of like Saxony's chiller little sister. It's also the birthplace of Martin Luther, who started the Protestant Reformation. Baroque composer Handel was born here. It is home to the Bauhaus movement, and they love Christmas here. They have a huge Christmas market and produce a lot of nutcrackers. When I was told, they are home to the mountain of Brocken, which on April 30th becomes the site of the Walpurgisnacht, a night of dancing with witches based off of the story by Goethe. Schleswig-Holstein, capital Kiel, named after the two duchies that worked together for centuries. It is the only bi-coastal state in Germany with coasts along the North Sea and the Baltic. And it's basically like the Denmark of Germany. There's a lot of Danish people here, Danish-speaking people here, and it's actually a protected, recognized language. You can greet people here by saying moin moin. And the cool thing is, on the North Sea coastline on the west side, they have the largest cohesive tidal flats in the world. A natural World Heritage site. Twice a day the tide recedes, exposing a massive mud flat. Of course, no surprise, fishing and sailing are huge out here. They actually have a huge sailing competition every year. Yeah, the people here are kind of known for being like tall, animal herding people that are really quiet, like they don't talk much. And finally, Thuringia or Thüringen, capital Erfurt, the last and final state of former East Germany. This place is probably most famous for the city of Weimar. As Geography Thorsten says, it is the home of Johann Wolfgang Goethe and Friedrich von Schiller. Their works in the so-called Sturm and Drang era was so influential that it was manifested in a saying about Germany. Germany is the country of poets and thinkers. They were kind of like the Shakespeares of Germany back in the day. Much of their writing actually influenced a lot of words and phrases for modern German that is spoken today. The composer Bach was born here. You can see his house. And interesting, they have a lot of caves here as well, like these. And they're known for having really good food here as well. They have like these potato dumpling things. And all Germans love Thuringian style bratwurst. They're famous for it. So there you go. Those are the 16 states of Germany. However, a lot of you guys also mentioned two other things. The Spanish Balearic island, Mallorca. A lot of Germans jokingly call this the 17th Bundesländer. This is a hot spot for Germans, and they flock to this place all year round. Tons of Germans already live here. A lot of the street signs and shop signs and billboards are written in German. People have lived on this island, never learning a word of Spanish, and they've been fine. Yeah, the Germans love this island. Back in Cold War times, Cuba kind of like said, oh, we're gonna give you this island, Cayos Blanco del Sur, named Ernst Thälmann Island. But then like Cuba was like, oh, it was just like a symbolic thing. We didn't actually give it to you. And then Germany was like, yeah, fine, whatever, keep that island. So that is it. So yeah, I mean, in conclusion, for Germany, you gotta hand it to them. They've gone through so much in the past century, and it's almost miraculous how much they've moved forward. Whether you're Bavarian or Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. Hope you like this video. Thank you. Dankeschön. Stay cool. Stay tuned.
Lasă-mă, lasă-mă! Adi n-ar fi micușcat niciodată cu mine. Niciodată, tu știi de când eram mic. Eu nu cred. Nu cred, n-are cum. Crezi că l-ați lăsat pe copilul la orfan? Zi! N-are cum. Ceva nu se leagă și se dau de cap. O să mă spun. Așa
That was the first program, or I give too much. We will see you on SkyXD Romania Serbia, Australia, Netherlands too.
It is.
Mai luați afacerile. Hai să ne